What's up YouTube? My name is Chad. This is the Wisco Boater channel. And today, as the first order of business on the Honda that I have removed, which I'll show you in a second here, I removed it off the dinghy just the other day. But the first thing I'm going to do with this engine is replace the impeller. I don't know what the history is on the impeller, so I did order a new old stock impeller for the motor. So that's ready to go. And if you've done a search on YouTube looking for a video to show you how to do this, you will know there are no good videos. There are videos, but they suck. So I'm going to try to do a better job of showing how to replace the impeller on a B 7.5 horsepower. I think there's an 8 horsepower and then the 10 horsepower. This is the B100. This is a 10 horsepower Honda. And it's really not that difficult to do. The hardest part is that you have to get in to the gear selector here and take out a pin. In order to do that, you got to kind of get these wires out of the way. You got to loosen up this heat sink that's down here. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, get that stuff out of the way, and then I'll remove that pin, because that pin connects to the shaft, the shift shaft that goes down to the lower unit. And that has to be disconnected before the lower unit can drop. You don't have to drop the unit all the way, you don't have to pull it all the way out, just drop it down to the floor and then you'll have access to the impeller cover. So I've never done this before on this engine, but like I said, it's pretty straightforward. I took the bits and pieces of the other videos that were out there on this, the ones that you could see. The videos, some of them are just horribly dark, can't understand the people, and not a knock on people putting stuff on YouTube, but you know, there are certainly better ways to make a quality video to pass along the information so that it's easy to understand and usable for someone like you to do this on your own. So I'll set up the camera and we'll get started on this. First thing I need to do is take it back off of the dinghy. I put it on the dinghy just to make sure that it fit right and the weight would be okay, and I want to make sure the colors matched up all right. It's time to start getting this thing running correctly. As mentioned before in previous videos, it does run. It runs really good. It just doesn't want to idle. So that's the problem I got to figure out. And the first thing I'm going to do is take it off the dinghy and put it on the engine stand here. Yeah, first things first, let's get it moved. I want to show my shirt here. If you can't see it here, this is what it says. And here's what's on the back, if you can see it. It's a Sailing Uma shirt, so shout out to their channel, Sailing Uma. They have no idea who I am, but my dad got me this shirt. We both follow that channel, so if you haven't checked out Sailing Uma, do that. And thanks for the shirt, Dad. I love it. Okay, we have the engine mounted on the stand here. Not exactly at a perfect running angle, so I'm gonna have to modify this just a little bit. I threw this stand together just kind of at the last minute, so it's real easy to adjust. I just gotta make sure that it's stable. And there's also some adjustments in the mount here, right there. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is pull that pin out, move it all the way to the back position here, which should straighten it out pretty well. It's a really light engine, weighs about 85 pounds. I shouldn't say really light. It's heavier than most modern 4-strokes, but still, for a 10 horsepower engine, 85 pounds, easy enough to move around. And I won't be able to set up a camera to show you how I'm doing this part, but I'll show you what I'm going to do and then I'll show you the result. So there is a bolt right there. It has to be loosened. It doesn't have to come out all the way, but it has to be loosened so that this heat sink can be moved to the side. And then the pin that we have to pull out is right back here. This pin right here, there's a cotter pin. that you need to pop out, which is right there, and then that pin slides out. And again, that is attached to the rod, which is right down in there. You can kind of see it, doesn't really want to focus, but it's down inside here. That goes all the way down to the lower unit. So I have it in forward gear, which brings the pin to the highest position. If you put it, get this back in shift, get it back in neutral, see the pin starts to drop back down. Reverse obviously goes all the way down to the bottom, no access. So neutral, forward, and we'll pull that out. And one more thing to note before I start loosening this, this is a 10 millimeter nut down inside there that I'm going to remove. Okay, I turned the engine a little more into the sun here so you can see what I'm talking about. The cotter pin is down. How can I point at it? Well, it's right at the tip of the screwdriver there. So I have to get down inside here. There, the head of the cotter pin is right there. So I need to grab it and pull it this way without dropping it. And then get that pin right there taken out. And I can't video it and pull it out at the same time, so I just wanted to show you where the cotter pin was and where the pin that's got to come out of there is located. Well, it was a royal pain in the ass, but cotter pin and the pin are out. And if we look down in here, let me see if I can shine a light so you can see it. That's where the pin goes, and you can see the rod is now free. So if I move shifter back to neutral, see that the rod is no longer connected. Okay, so I'm sure that will be tricky to get that reconnected, but that's the only way to do it. Okay, the second step in doing this is to remove 5 bolts. There's 3 and there's 2 on the other side. These are also 10 millimeter. Show that off. And I'm gonna start up here. Okay, I'm gonna let this hang here just for a second so I can get some support under it. Don't want to leave it hanging too terribly long, but the impeller is inside this housing right here. A couple of things I'm noticing before I do anything is, well, we got some rust on the shaft that turns the impeller. We'll get a closer look at that when we get the cover off, but some cracking there, and same thing over here. So we'll get this taken off and inspect it a little bit closer, but should be just 6 bolts. Yeah, 3 on this side, 3 on the other side, and then that cover lifts off. Actually, I think this might be a separate cover. Okay. These are also 10 millimeter. Kind of nice when everything is the same size. Well, you can see the condition of this impeller is really good. Actually, pretty much feels brand new. But this is good for me to know anyway, just because, you know, I obviously need to know what the condition is before starting it up for the first time. And if this was disintegrated, then the engine would have overheated, and because there would be no water flowing. So the gasket looks pretty good. No tears or anything. I think I did lose a washer. Yeah, I can see it. I'll grab a magnet. See it down in there? Get a magnet to get that out. I'll clean this rust up. And yeah, see, that's just wiping right off. Clean that up and we'll get this put back together. So I just have a spare impeller now. No reason to pull this out. This is literally in brand new condition, which kind of halfway expected. The guy I bought this from was very meticulous on his maintenance, so it's not surprising. The only thing that I'm not showing here, if you're replacing your impeller, is obviously taking this shaft pulls up and out, or you can try to work the impeller up over the shaft and then just drop a new one on. I will show how I get the cover back on without damaging the impeller vanes. They'll just be zip tied to get them started, and should slide right back on fairly easily without having to take the impeller off and squeeze it in here. Although maybe I'll do that just for fun. Let's see. All right, I did pull out the impeller shaft. This end here, you can see has teeth on it, goes down into the gearing for the propeller. It just lifts straight out. There's no fasteners or anything. So again, looking over the impeller, I may go ahead and replace it with the new one, and then just use this one as a spare because this one's in real good shape. I did make a little diagram here looking from the top down at how the vanes are twisted, so that when I go to put the new one in, I know which way to bend them over. So the only thing now is to figure out how to get this off, if I'm going to take it off, because I don't know if you can see it, but there's some pretty decent rust in here. So I need to clean that up and then see if I can slide it. It has to slide up this way because the shaft gets larger down here. All right, so I'm going to try and knock this old impeller off. All right, it's moving. You can see there is a keyway here. I don't want to damage that keyway. So this fits around the outside of the keyway. And then I can hold it up with one hand. There we go. Okay. See the keyway? So yeah, I'm glad I'm taking this off because there's some surface rust here that needs to be cleaned up. And this impeller still is in good shape. So I'll clean this up and just use this as a spare. And we'll put the new one on. Okay, the shaft is as clean as it's gonna get. I do have some concerns with the rust that I'm seeing on this. This part right here, you can see it has some scoring on it. It rotates around inside the base of the water pump, and that's more than surface rust right there. You can feel it with the knife. This has got some pitting, but this is a thick piece. What I'm going to do, I think, before I move on to putting the new impeller in place, is I'm going to go do some research to see if I can find the replacement shaft, and if I can, I'll go ahead and buy one. If not, this is going to have to do. Parts for this engine are somewhat available, and somewhat not. So let me do some searching and see what we find. So I did some research on this last night, and I also checked with a buddy of mine who does outboard repairs. And basically what it comes down to is this part is obsolete. They do make a superseded version of this that doesn't have this key. It has a flat side, which takes a different impeller. And I just don't really see the need to spend the money on the new shaft after I found out what, basically that this one is in usable condition. So yes, it does have some pitting right here as well as right here, but the most important thing is there are no channels or journals allowing the gear oil, which is below this line, or water, which is going to be above this line, to mix together. So this shaft is reusable at some point. It is going to fail, and maybe I have, you know, enough useful life out of this engine to the point where, up to the point where I'll be ready to replace the engine with something newer. So in the meantime, I'm going to use this, and we'll get the impeller reinstalled. Again, I am using the new impeller. It's got a keyway. You can see it right there. Matches up with the key on the shaft. Okay, slide it right on down. Now, to get this back in place the way it's supposed to, so it fits inside the housing, I'm going to use some zip ties. I think 3 of them. And again, I've got this little diagram here that shows me that the fins get twisted this way. So maybe I only need 2. But what I'm going to do is take a zip tie and tighten as I twist. And you can see the fins are going in the direction that I need them to go. Okay, just like that. And if I look at my hand-drawn diagram here, the fins are going in the correct direction. I'm going to put one more zip tie on the bottom. Okay, so I've got the fins going in the correct direction. So what I'll do is I'll drop this down in the lower unit, and then when I put the housing over it, I'll get the housing started and then cut the zip ties off as the housing is slipped over it. I'm also going to use a little bit of soapy water. Okay, first thing we're going to do is put the shaft back in place. Okay, get that seated back down in there. Soapy water. Got soapy water inside the housing here. Okay, there we go. So I'll have a little bit of twist available. And you get my nippers. All right, so I'll reach up inside here. That one out of the way. And cut this one off. And just like that, the impeller is back in place. And we'll put the bolts back in. So you can see it is a very simple job to do. Getting these bolts tightened down one at a time, it's kind of like doing a car. When you're putting wheels back on a car, you want to go corner to corner. So I have this back one here tightened first, then I go over here. Now I'm going to go up here, tighten this one down. And there's probably a specific torque for these, but and to get these tightened down, you want to be just a little bit careful, because if your housing has some cracks in it like mine does, you don't want to go too tight. These cracks are on the outside of the gasket, so they're not going to cause any problems. But you certainly can crack them if you're not careful. This part here doesn't really need to come off if you're doing this, if you're just replacing the impeller. If you want to inspect the gasket, this part does need to come off. So you can take the gasket completely off and inspect it. This gasket is like brand new, so I'm not replacing it. Okay, once everything is tight again, you simply lift the lower unit back up. Okay. Goes. Now if we look back up top, I probably should get the shifter in the right position. I messed around with it the other day. Okay, so let me show you. Okay, you can see the shifter rod is right there. Came back up through. So after we tighten everything down at the lower unit, we're able to put that pin and cotter key back in place. All right, and with the lower unit back up in place here, I'm going to put the rear. You can't quite see it with the camera angle, can you? Anyway, it's this one way in the back here. Get that one in first. I'm just going to hand tighten all the way up to the head contacts, or if it's too tight where you can't tighten it by hand. These front ones are a little more difficult to turn because there's not much space. Get your fingers in there. All right, now I'm going to do the front ones first. As you can see, there's a bigger gap here than there is back here. Okay. Get those nice and snug. All right, well, the lower unit is now done, and we'll bring our attention back up to the top side here, where we need to put the pin and the cotter pin back in place, which I'm sure will be fun. Sorry I can't film this while I'm doing it. I have no place to set the camera to show you what I'm doing here, but you can see the pin is now in place right there. And you can see the hole for the cotter key that's going to go in there. I did have to wiggle the gear selector just a little bit to get the pin in there, but now sliding the cotter key should be just a matter of lining it up and sliding it in, bending the tabs, and this job will be done. All right, if you look at the cotter key, you can see it's bent, so it is not coming out. And with the throttle in the shift position, I can go forward, neutral, and reverse. which means it was installed correctly. Reverse, neutral, forward. And if it will focus, yeah. Counter keys in place, lower units in place, impeller replaced. So that's what there is. That's what there is to do when you're replacing the impeller on these B 7.5s or B75, I guess it's called, or the B100. So I hope that the video was informative and well, I'll just say it, better quality than everything else that's out there, because I know that the impeller replacement on these motors is not really well covered. It's covered, but not with real good video quality. So hopefully this one helped you, and hope you enjoyed it. So hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, send me some comments. If you want to be notified when I post new videos like this one, hit that notification bell. And I post videos once a week, usually on Thursday mornings, whether it's on outboard engine repair for this little Honda, activity on the dinghy, putting new seats in on Clifford, the Regal 2665, which is more or less sold, or working on boat projects like this Sea Ray. It's a 1971 SRV 180, or 18. Yeah, whatever it is, SRV 180. Taking it apart, learning more stuff. That's what I do. I take boats apart to learn more stuff. So all kinds of stuff on this channel. Check it out if you haven't been here before. There's tons of information out there running an express cruiser, maintenance, DIY, boat projects. I built a tugboat. The playlists are there. So check it out, and I hope you enjoy it. We'll see you next time on the Wisco Boater channel. Happy boating, everybody.